Estamos.
Alonzi.
Oye, oye, chicos, ¿qué pasa, muchachos? ¿Qué pasa, oyentes? Hey, everyone. This is episode 18. Whoa, legal. I'm from Alberta. So Lloydminster, it's a city of two provinces. So if you were on the Alberta side, you were able to go for a drink at 18. But if you went across the street to Saskatchewan, you had to be 19. It's your fun tip about 18 in the provinces. This is Ian. And hey, yo, I'm recording from a brand new location. First time I've recorded a podcast. I'm in the mountains, so I don't think it's going to take you guys too long to guess. This is the pod about the pods, we shall say. The inspiration, the podcast that inspired us to do this and keep inspiring us, languages and other things likewise. But that's my little spiel. I'm in the mountains, so I think you guys will know right away where I am. But let's go. So Cody, you're pretty close to me actually right now. What's up, Tio Kodo?
Okay, well, you're either in Canmore or Banff.
Banff.
Yeah.
I say Banff.
Cody, what do you say?
I'm gonna say Canmore.
Tio Sueco tiene razón. I'm in Banff, boys. Enjoy the vibes here.
Why would you go to Canmore when you could go to Banff?
That's true.
It's a little further.
That's
Canmore's
my
nice,
logic.
though.
It's
Yeah.
nice. It's nice, and it's the best place to go during peak tourist season if you ever go to Canada. Because Banff is
Canmore?
crazy.
Yeah.
But right now, during COVID, I figured there's no tourism. All the hotels
Yeah.
are probably empty.
Yeah,
you
great
could probably
rates,
get a pretty
great
nice
rates right
deal,
now.
no?
Yeah, really good rates for a nice room. It's 2 levels, a hot tub. Oh, you gotta like book it because of COVID-ness. But yeah, man, in the mountains, just enjoying. It's been a crazy week. My work is switching back to online, so just transitioning's happening. But it's good just to come to the mountains and be just see Mother Nature, bring some calmness to life.
Right now is actually a really good time to do some tourism, hacer turismo. For example, I'm moving on Tuesday. I'm moving out of this place because I have to move out.
Te vas?
And I have to stay in Barcelona for 2 weeks, 2 more weeks before I go up to Pinche Suecia way.
Your time's arrived.
Yeah,
Holy man, damn, that went
Blown
fast.
by.
Time flies, bro. But so anyway, I was on Airbnb and there's so much available on Airbnb, right?
I can imagine.
And everything is cheap too. So there's probably a 30 to 40% descuento. So
gran descuento.
everything's cheaper essentially.
Yeah.
So I booked this freaking super nice penthouse apartment for the last 2 weeks. It was still expensive, but it's still much less expensive than it would have been during regular times. So yeah, moving up in life. enjoying my time here for sure. Exactly.
Penthouse. Yeah. It's almost December. What, on Tuesday? And then,
Exactement.
Man, crazy. And then you're going back home for a little bit.
I'm going back home. I'm going home. I'm doing a little quarantine before I see my parents. No way. Un parto diferente way. No, I'm going up north. We have my family has like a little cabaña, digamos. It's like a little house and like a little
okay,
mountain house, a cabin.
Yeah, cabin.
How far up north? How far are we talking? Like,
so in
Arctic
Sweden,
Circle?
no, it's not Arctic Circle. So Sweden's a very elongated country. It's very it's very thin. It's not very wide, but it's very long, right? So Stockholm is in the very south, but in the Swedish way of thinking, geographically, Stockholm is like in the middle. That's like middle Sweden. And so technically where our cabin is literally, I think it's halfway up the country. But for us, for the people from Stockholm, it's in the north. Technically.
It's just your reference.
Yes, exactly. So in Sweden, the last 2/3 of the country are considered the north.
The vast,
okay.
That makes sense, right? It's kind of like Canada.
Yeah, it's similar here.
It's kind of like Canada. Like Calgary's in the south, but technically, like Edmonton is like northern Canada. And we're like, if you go up if you go up to like what's it called, Whitehorse?
Yeah,
Yellowknife is still like halfway up in Canada, but that's like the way north for us. Like for a person in Calgary going to Yellowknife, that's like way up there, but it's only like halfway up actually geographically. So I'm flying to Stockholm, then I'm jumping on a train immediately up there.
Yeah.
And then I'll be there for 8 days.
Oh, you take a train to where the cabin is?
You can fly, but they canceled all the flights up there, or all the flights that worked. So I'm gonna have to take a train.
Gotcha, man.
But that's pretty cool that you can. That's pretty cool that you can take the train up to your cabin. That's like unheard of in Canada.
Yeah, no, it's pretty neat, and it's like a high speed train too. I have to change to a bus, so the last 2 hours is with a bus. But I'll take the high speed train up to the closest city, and then I'll take the bus for the rest of the way.
Amazing.
That's the plan. But it's kind of tricky now because even Sweden, they've resisted this whole lockdown and everything. But now but now they're realizing, because they have like the highest death rate in all of Europe, they're realizing, hey, we can't keep doing this. We have to do something. So they're canceling a bunch of flights and buses and everything. Man. So it's been a little tricky, especially getting a flight. They canceled all the flights, all the direct flights from Barcelona to Stockholm. They're all canceled.
So what are you doing? Like,
I have to take I have to go through Amsterdam, which is the way I'm going back to Calgary anyway later. So I'm basically flying Barcelona, Amsterdam, Stockholm. Then I'll be in Stockholm for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. We're in Sweden. Then I go Stockholm, Amsterdam, direct to Calgary. And I got a pretty sick deal on the Canada flight, because flying to Canada usually from Europe is so expensive. But I got a pretty sick deal. It was only a couple $100.
What?
Boom.
Not a couple hundred, a little more than that.
Still,
two couples. Because
when I went to Europe 3 years ago, it was like $1,200 round trip.
Yeah, this is cheaper.
Yeah, it sounds way cheaper, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the best route as well, because it's only a short layover in Amsterdam and then directly on a nice KLM flight all the way to Cowtown, baby.
Pueblo de Vaca.
Pueblo de Vaca. Pueblo de Vaca. All right. So I guess I'll throw it over to Mr. Pinch. Elbogen. What's your update, dude? How you? Come on that way.
Well, I've got a little surprise in the works. I'm not going to tell listeners just yet, but
all right.
I've been working on something. I've been concocting something, I guess you could say. But just have to stay tuned and find out later.
You're a superstar, dude.
Okay. Keep an eye on Kodo Watch. Kodo Watch has begun. What is Kodo up to?
All right, but you gotta give us something, man. How you doing?
A little more.
What's going on in?
Is it language related? What's some language?
Yeah, it's language related. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you gotta give us something else. Like, is that the only thing going on in your life, or qué pasa, tío?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I've just been I've been working a lot lately, and I've just been working away in my languages. I've been really enjoying just spending time with them, and that's about it.
Languages are kind of like friends.
Yeah,
hey, doing it by yourself.
I've been really starting to look at it like that. Like, instead of saying, okay, like I need to do this in order to get better at this, I am starting to look at it just like, okay, like I'm just gonna have fun with this. Like, I'm already pretty good at these languages, and I'm just gonna enjoy the material. And when I'm doing something like Korean, I'm just, instead of viewing it as like something really difficult that I need to like push myself to do, I'm just like enjoying.
Yes.
And it's making the process a lot easier to do for me.
Yeah, you're just with the material. I find whether, because the languages, right, there's so many ways to practice with. Are you going to listen? Are you going to read? Are you going to watch? And then if you want to like be more intensive or just more passive, like whatever I'm doing, like I think I've told you guys, like I'm rarely ever in a bad mood with languages. I'm never in a bad mood. Sometimes I'm slower, like I'm tired.
Right now.
I'm slower right now. Yeah, I'm potting right now. Good thing I'm not looking over German or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So you might be a little slower at times because you hang out with too many friends. Well, I actually can't do that right now. That's against the law. Yeah, no, I'm never in a bad mood with languages. So
That's good. Boys, I just have to share this. I had 2 italki classes this weekend.
en
2.
français? Ou quoi?
Exactement. Alors,
oui?
en fait, j'ai récupéré mon français maintenant
Bien
et
sûr.
j'ai pu d'avoir une conversation d'une heure d'une façon assez librement, je dirais. Alors, j'ai beaucoup d'envie d'améliorer mon français.
Tu es en train
Exactement, je suis en train d'améliorer mon français.
Parfait.
Ooh,
So I did that, and then this morning, man, I had my weekly French, or what's that other language that I'm learning? Spanish.
Oh yeah, that one.
That one. I did that, and I mean, like, that's going super well. I feel like for the past 2-3 months, my Spanish has gone from here to here. Like, I've really surpassed I was at a plateau before, but I've definitely been able to elevate myself over that plateau to increase my learning curve, digamos.
Okay, it's gonna be the transition now into the
transition
of
exactly.
the pod with your French, le français, and we've talked about this guy before, but this is the pod about pods. And for French, I think of huge inspiration to us, all 3 of us. I know we all like Did you listen to any Hugo?
Of course, every day, man. I've gone through like all of his episodes.
Really? Everyone?
No, not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of them.
I've been listening to Hugo for quite a long time now, and I'm approaching the end. I think I've got maybe like 10 or 12 episodes left, and I'm gonna be really sad when I'm gonna cry.
Well,
no, but just re-listen, man.
Yeah,
re-listen. That's what I do.
I don't know. Like, I understand the logic behind re-listening, but I personally don't like re-listening or re-watching something. Like, not even with languages, but just like with movies, for example. Like, I don't like re-watching movies. I don't like re-watching TV shows. I view it as kind of a waste of time, to be honest.
I think it's important that you still always do something you find interesting.
And like if I'm rewatching something, I don't find it interesting unless it's something that I really, really like.
Yeah, and that fits into like Stephen Krashen being like, you need compelling, comprehensible input, and for something to be compelling, you have to be interested. So actually, with Hugo, what's he have now? 80 episodes on it?
85. The last one 85? Was La France va-t-elle légaliser le cannabis?
Ooh, I haven't listened to that one.
That's a great episode.
That's the next one. Okay.
He references Canada.
Oh, le Canada.
Le Canada.
Yeah, like so I take so basically I just treat a podcast like his. So many episodes, I just scroll through like, what am I interested in? Like if I was just listening to a pod in English, like I think he's got certain, like the second one about robots or like certain topics. His first one's really good. I re-listened to it this week where he just talks about the philosophy of his podcast, like what he's doing and how he's like, I think with lots of languages now, there's lots of beginner type podcasts, but then I feel like there's a bit of you got to hunt for them, but the intermediate material isn't there. And I think he has zoned in on hey, this is my intermediate audience.
He actually mentioned that in one of his podcast episodes. This is actually one that I kind of recently listened to because I remember it. He was saying, his beginner episodes or like the first episodes he produced were more beginner, and he's like sped up as he's gone on. I don't know if he's done that consciously or unconsciously, but that's
So first of all, this episode we never mentioned it, or this podcast is called Inner French, and it's available everywhere.
Inner
YouTube
French.
videos, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But so I'm looking at his page right now, and it literally, like, the name of this podcast series is called Intermediate French Podcast.
Right.
That's what he calls it.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
literally what it is. And it's by far the best intermediate material there is by far, because his pronunciation is flawless. Perfect. But the interesting thing about Hugo is that he's not a big language learner. Like, he lives in Poland.
Yeah.
But he's learning Polish, but he
Right.
doesn't speak anything else.
Yeah.
English.
Yeah, obviously, but he doesn't. He's not like a polyglot.
But that's fine. I almost like I could prefer
No, of
that.
course it's I can prefer that too, but it's just interesting because he has a whole video about how he doesn't like learning languages.
It's like having a specialty, right? Like, hey, French is my jam. I'm gonna do French, and and then for him to make content too, like, so appreciate, like, that's exactly what I need in that intermediate advanced level. I just need that content like his, listening, because yeah, anytime listening to Hugo, it's and like it's all in French. I think that's especially what I like too.
But that's what you need.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're not 100% beginner, you should not be listening to an English French podcast. You know what I mean? Like, Duolingo has these podcasts in French where they they give context in English, and then they have like the French dialogues or whatever, and those are so annoying.
Yeah, I know what you mean. This is a problem I've been running into with Korean lately. I've been struggling to find like an inner French equivalent for Korean.
Right.
I keep searching for some kind of like podcast or YouTube channel where like you can just view something that's purely in Korean, but it's like super simple language. And I actually just like a couple weeks ago I found a YouTube channel that's actually pretty good for that, but it's still not really like the excellence that is inner French. I find it's just such a perfect
gold standard.
Like the nail right on the head with that thing.
Yeah, he kills it.
Yeah.
He kills it. So there's another French podcast that I've been listening to and watching videos of on YouTube. I'm very confident that you guys know it. It's called Français Authentique.
Oh yeah.
Français Authentique is almost as good as inner French.
You know that mech, the guy with the glasses?
Yeah, what's his name? Johan?
Yeah, I think so. But it's great. Right. And also very good intermediate material.
Mm-hmm.
He speaks very clearly, perfect pronunciation.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I've gone through a bunch of his episodes. A lot of really good YouTube videos, tips and tricks, you know. Astuces. Beaucoup d'astuces, si tu me comprends.
Yeah. But yeah, that's something that I definitely appreciate is when they have like material purely in the target language, because yeah, like you said, Marcus, there's way too many resources out there that like they give you like a little bit of the target language and then they just give like a hugely long explanation in English. I'm like, I don't need that. But
yeah, it's like I think you said how Hugo's progressed. Like he started like his first episodes may have been like lower and now maybe he's up to like a B2-ish. And it can be, it's a delicate balance because I guess Hugo, it's not a French course. It's just French material for people to get into. So let's try, like one I listen to for Ukraine is called Ukrainian Lessons Podcast, which it's very similar in terms of like season 1 is like an A1 material and then season 2 is A2. And what I've been enjoying about this particular one, and it's something I'm sure other languages have or they could have, is how the first season she does talk a lot in English, but then progressively she fades it out into just like long spiels of Ukrainian, and then she just adds in like little bits. So I think it's all, and it's probably for Ukrainian, which it has lots of resources, but not a lot compared to like some of the big languages. I'm like super grateful that this one exists, but I think I like when she's just speaking purely in Ukrainian for like 5 minutes. Like it's like listening to the Hugo of Ukrainian. That one's called Ukrainian Lessons Podcast. If any Ukrainian learners are out there. Okay. So
but yeah, when you don't have a consistent access to native speakers, like that's what you need to do to really get your listening comprehension up there. Is like you need to have this constant stream where you really get your brain accustomed to how the language sounds, like how people formulate, how people just naturally talk, and then you need to like just really absorb what they're saying and try to think in that manner as well. Because if you're just like getting all these explanations in English all the time, and like you get like something in your target language and then you get another burst of English, it's like you don't really need to try, right?
So this is so going back to comprehensible input. This what we're talking about right now is for intermediate learners. So it's very important for a beginner. I still think it's very good.
You could still have comprehensible input from your first.
Yes, I know, but for a super beginner, if you're just starting out, I'm still a strong believer in like the Pimsleur style program or the
but
that style, you know, where you still have an English narrator. And you're basically just going through discussions and you're kind of translating them.
Yeah, beginner is a different story. I think beginner, it's a little bit unavoidable. Like you still need explanations.
Yes, like the Michelle Thomas method, for example. That's what I'm trying to get at. That's what you need in the beginning. But as soon as you possibly can, you should try to transition into a pure material in your target language.
Right.
Sure.
Like I'm doing French. But Cody's right about how hearing those conversations, how they're forming questions, like it's probably been like 3 or 4 months now, the Easy German podcast, which I find quite good as well. Not quite as interesting as Hugo, but I still really enjoy them, and it's available material. But that took a while for me to like get to that. I was just going to listen to those. Like the start of 2020, like no way, like that would have overwhelmed me and just been like gibberish to me. But now so it's like you said, that beginner phase, and then it's exciting when you get to be like, oh, okay, now I'm ready for this resource. Like, and with these podcasts, there's so many podcasts now in the target languages, and like it's great because Hugo, I really like Hugo because he has his audience in mind, and then once you make that jump from learning materials to actual native materials, like Marcus, you talked about one Creativo the other day. Like,
so, hey, well, let me know when we transition to Spanish, and I got a long list, bud.
No, of course. But I guess my point is that's a fun jump when you go from language materials to just what native speakers listen to.
I just wanted to comment on. I actually was just thinking about this the other day. I was talking with a student on iTalki a while ago just about this kind of stuff. And I realized that there's only really 2 phases of language learning that are really, really fun. And that's when you first start beginning. You're an absolute beginner. You know nothing. You're brand new.
Setting off on the voyage.
Super fun because it's like you have that initial euphoria and you're like, whoa, everything's new. And it's But then you get to that phase where you realize you're a beginner and like, you start wanting to say things and you're like, oh my God, I suck at everything. And then I think from that period all the way up until when you can start to access native speaker materials, that giant chunk, you need some motivation and discipline because it's not as fun as either the absolute beginning phase or when you can start accessing native speaker materials. Because when you get to that advanced level, then that stage is so much fun. And that's really what people are shooting for. And it's just an incredible time when you get to that level and like you can just start riffing and like the movies and shows.
I was gonna say I feel like I'm like right there right now in Spanish where I've essentially traversed the intermediate plateau and now I'm in the polishing steps. Right. So I essentially don't feel like I'm studying Spanish anymore. I feel like I'm kind of just like developing my Spanish personality.
And when you get to that level, it's so much fun.
Right. Like right now, like what I'm working on is like the little nitty gritty, like subjuntivos, like the subjunctive moods like when to use it exactly and stuff like that. And, you know, learning, I have a long list of like advanced vocabulary in French as well. So I'm transitioning, trying to build my academic Spanish, Castellano as well. So it's very fun. It's really, really fun. And also, you know, like I'm not in Spanish. I'm not listening to like learning material anymore. I have a bunch of podcasts that are like intermediate podcasts specifically for people that are learning Spanish. But like, I'm not, and that was like everything I listened to before. Like even a couple months ago, everything I listened to was like, learn how to speak Spanish. Like this is the Spanish Learners podcast. But now I'm transitioning into like native, like I'm going in on Spotify and I'm looking up like the podcast top lists in all these different countries.
Oh,
and have you guys done that?
No, I haven't actually.
I haven't done that.
It's so cool, man. Like Spotify is the best. So you go in, just like
what the
you
people
get like
are listening to.
Exactly. Just so you get like all the different top lists for music. You get the same thing for podcasts for all these different countries.
Okay, so what have you seen? What have you discovered?
So first of all, I've discovered that Spanish or like European Spanish podcasts, they kind of suck. Suck. Like it's not really that great. There's this really famous podcast. I'm gonna pull it up. It's called Nadie Sabe Nada.
Okay.
It's the biggest one here. I find it kind of frivolous. Like it's a little trivial, in my opinion. Like they're kind of just goofing around. I guess it's kind of funny, but it's not as I like the Joe Rogan style deep podcast, like the podcast you just mentioned, Creativo, which is one of the most popular podcasts in Mexico, where they have like a long style conversation about like a very interesting topic. Right. And the biggest podcast in Spain, Nadie Sabe Nada, they're just talking about nothing essentially for an hour and a half.
Okay. Yeah. Like this goes back to being something that's interesting and compelling to you, like finding something that's of your interest. So for me, like I really enjoy the history ones. So there's one called La Casa de Historia by Diana Uribe, a Colombian lady. And
I have that one
hers
as well.
are fantastic, like the production wise. And she just gets into her narratives about the country and she's visited a lot of them. And like I just forget I'm listening in Spanish because I'm just so intrigued by what her content is itself. So it's like, okay, I just want to learn about Egypt today. So let's listen to her Egypt podcast.
I saw it. So that's the latest podcast series that she released about Egypt. So that's actually the most popular podcast in Colombia. That's on top of the list. That makes
total sense because it's on top of the list quality.
Yeah,
so good.
So these podcasts, like I said, I just want to give some more information about the one that I was just telling you about. So it's called Creativo by this guy. So my Mexican friend actually recommended this one to me, but it's by Roberto Martinez, como se llama el chico que tiene el podcast. He also has another podcast that's more like they release it weekly. It's him and another chico, and another compa. And they talk about like politics and like the news, essentially some like a tema de las noticias, digamos. It's called Cosas, so things, Cosas. And this is all on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts as well. But I transitioned to Spotify now. Essentially, I listen to everything in Spotify. It's a much better platform. Apple.
Yes. I do prefer the Spotify podcast.
Spotify is way better.
Apple has screwed up big time. First of all, they let Joe Rogan go to Spotify exclusively. Big mistake.
No, okay, but you can still watch Rogan on other platforms.
No. He's going to be exclusive on Spotify starting December 1st.
Is that when the date was?
Yeah, December 1st. He's still in that transition. He's still in the transition, but he's going to be exclusive.
Because I was like, what the heck? He's still everywhere.
So Spotify is a Swedish company, by the way. Los suecos saben.
IKEA and Spotify.
IKEA and Spotify, baby. Jesus. So Cosas, se llama Cosas and Creativo. So very easy to remember. But then I also want to reference this new podcast that I actually found today. It's called, it's a Mexican podcast. It's called Dos Nombres Comunes. It's on Spotify. And it's so here's the fun thing. It's a Swede and a Mexican.
Oh.
It's a Swede and a Mexican. But here's the thing. This is the verdadero sueco mexicano. Like he's so Mexican. The Swedish guy is so Mexican.
Oh yeah.
You know this guy? He's called.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
AJ showed him to me.
Andreas Östberg, I think he's called.
Let me just is that Sueco a co-host?
Yeah, he's a co-host.
Show? Okay.
That's the way. That's the way.
Yeah,
It'd be sick if we get him on the pod, actually. But that's the way. It's Andreas Östberg. Yes. He's a pinche Sueco, but you would never guess he's a Sueco if you just listen to him. His Mexican his Mexican accent is flawless.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll try to reach out. I'll shoot him a shout out on the Insta. Get him on the pod. We'll have to get him on the pod, and we'll talk about that, because that's an interesting transition, how you go from pinche Sueco to pinche Sueco Mexicano.
Cody, which Korean podcast have you been trying out?
Well, here I'll add one for Spanish, and then I'll jump.
All right, yeah.
This is not like one that's produced by. Well, it's not for native speakers. It's still for learners, but it's for more like. I think they have levels actually for beginner, intermediate, and advanced. But you guys have probably heard of it. It's called Notes in Spanish.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I find that one is pretty good if you're learning at any level too. So
that's the British guy and the Madrileña, no?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This British guy's been living in Spain for what, like 20 years or something.
Yeah, right. No, he speaks great Spanish.
Yeah, but they're married. They're like a middle-aged couple. They've been living in Madrid for the past while, and they've got a couple kids and everything. So they have two. Also to hear from people who are like middle-aged instead of, because most people who produce podcasts are young people, right?
Yeah, that's
fair
true.
enough. Yeah. I have another I have a long list of like intermediate to beginner material podcasts.
Okay.
I just want to. Yes, exactly. I just want to talk on this real quick. So intermediate Spanish. No, what's it called again?
Notes in Spanish.
Notes in Spanish. They have a beginners podcast and a intermediate podcast.
Oh, nice.
So I remember when I started Spanish, I actually listened to their beginners podcast, and it's pretty good. So it is mostly in English, but they talk about Spanish, and they talk about different phrases that are useful in Spanish. So I think that could be like a really good podcast to get started with if you're new to the language.
They have an advanced one too, and the advanced one's really good.
Well, I haven't listened to that one. I've only listened to the intermediate and the.
Well, they have all three levels.
Yeah,
they have all three levels. Yes, but that's a really good one. That's a really good one, and I like that they have the Brit as well, because the lady, I don't remember her name, Marina or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly, but she's obviously, I think she's like a Spanish teacher or something. So she obviously speaks Spanish really well. It's her native language. But then the Brit, obviously. It's really good that he exists, because he's an example of someone who's been able to a very fluent Spanish.
Right. Which
so he
gives all these more inspiration.
Exactly. He aspires inspiration.
And there's actually another one like that. It's called Españolistas. Have you heard?
Oh yeah, I know that one. Yeah,
but this one is like this American
gringo,
guy.
Right? It's with a gringo.
The gringo. El gringo.
But this guy, you know what? I'm gonna like be kind of civil about this, but like he's got to work on his pronunciation.
Yeah, he does.
That's so funny. Yeah, he speaks well though, like grammatically.
Yeah, kind of well, but like.
Like
listen to how you're saying the words.
He's got the biggest gringacho acento que existe en el mundo, tío.
Yeah.
I just gotta make a point about that non-native speakers part, speaking the language, because I was on we could do a whole episode about YouTube channels one day eventually too, but Matt versus Japan was talking with this girl, and how about she was getting way more views when it wasn't like she wasn't speaking with a native speaker, like it was super high level advanced. She was getting way more views when it was like someone at a more intermediate level learning the language, because I think people were like, oh, like, yeah, that's possible. It's possible to do that. When you're just listening to a native speaker, like, yeah, okay, it's obviously native fluency level. So I think that is interesting how non-native speakers getting their languages Like maybe I hope maybe our No Mom This Way episode be like, hey, like, yo, these guys are doing it.
Boys, we gotta do No Munch's Way soon.
No Mom This Way, yeah.
I really
We
feel
gotta
like we
do
have to
that.
do that. I feel like I have to revisit that. I have to show the world my new Spanish skills here. So
Claro,
we have to do No Munch's Way relatively soon.
yeah.
But yeah, I totally get it. It's valuable. So there's value in having a podcast with other intermediate speakers.
Yeah.
But it's like inspiring.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Like we said before.
It's an example.
All right. Exactly. Guys, should I go down the list here or?
Keep rolling. Let's keep rolling. Let's get
okay,
through it.
So good podcasts for intermediate Spanish learners. If you're trying to learn some Castellano, so European Spanish, I would recommend Hoy Hablamos. It's a really good podcast, and the good thing about it is that they release episodes every day, every weekday. Ooh. So it's basically this tío, this guy who is our age. He's in his 20s. I'm pretty sure he's in his 20s.
I'm 31, dude. I'm the old guy.
Oh!
Okay, but this guy, okay, he's around 30. Right. He's around 30. He's upper 20s for sure. And he does like a 20 to 30 minute spiel.
Oh, that's how long.
About 20-30 minute spiel each day about like an interesting topic. So today, like the last one is called Black Friday, 24 minutes. And then also he does like what I really like. He goes into like the language as well. So he does like episodes for expressions. Like he does a bunch of expression episodes. For example, this one is called Expresiones para no desesperarse.
Okay.
I don't even know what desesperarse means actually, but
Tampoco.
Okay. He does all these he does all these episodes where he gives insights into the Spanish language. There's some good stuff there to be listened to be consumed for sure. And then he also has a sister podcast called Hoy Hablamos Gramática. So he talks about different grammar stuff. So this is very nerdy, and I'm not a person who likes grammar. I'm not a person who likes grammar. I don't study grammar. I rarely study grammar, but this is actually pretty good. Every once in a while, if you're feeling motivated to go in and listen to one of his grammar episodes, for example, this one is called ¿Qué, cuál, quién, cuándo, dónde? So like when to use these different words, right? And
right.
For example, he has a bunch of different subjuntivo episodes as well, which for a Spanish learner is very valuable, right? So 20 minutes of just going through different examples with subjuntivo. A bunch of stuff. And this one he doesn't post every day, but he has a lot of episodes. I think he posts once a week. He releases a new episode once a week. So very useful, very useful, very, very useful. I've listened to many of those, many of those. So those are very useful for Spanish. I have another one that I really want to recommend. I really want to recommend it. Called Español con Juan. And this tío, he's Cody. You'll like this. He's an older man. He's an hombre viejo. From Spain. He's from Andalusia, and he has like a very strong Spanish lisp, which is really fun. But this guy is hilarious. He's like a little bit politically incorrect, which just makes it more funny, in my opinion. But he's such a goof, and he basically has these long monologues that can be up to an hour long, where he talks about anything that comes to his mind. Anything. Super fun to listen to. And he's a Spanish teacher. He lives in London, I think. Yeah, he lives in London. He teaches at one of the universities there, I think.
Right.
And I mean, I'm looking through. I'm on Apple Podcasts right now, and I'm scrolling through. And you know how you can see all the episodes that you've listened to. They have like a check mark next to them. I'm like scrolling for multiple seconds down, and every single episode has a check mark. So I watched all the episodes that he's released for the past 2 years.
Right.
Super good podcast for intermediates, because he goes through subjuntivo as well, but it's very informal. He's just shooting the shit, you know? with himself. That's
yeah.
the funny part. And he says some funny stuff as well.
If it's entertaining, man, then
And it's not too. I promise it's not too offensive. It's more funny than offensive. It's. I don't
Did you
know.
listen
I
to
enjoy
that
it.
Tom Segura in Espanol?
Yeah, I was gonna get to it, man. I was
You
gonna
want to
get
get
to
to
it.
what's offensive?
But Tom Segura, he's not offensive though.
Or, no, or like dirty comedy, whatever you want to call it. Like
Yeah, but it's
some of
still
his
like
episodes,
there's way
hilarious.
worse. There's
Oh,
way worse than
I'm
him.
sure there is. I'm sure there
There's way
is.
worse than him. He seems to be
Uh-huh.
like a pretty soft guy, in my opinion. Tom Segura, no?
Listen to a few
Very,
episodes. Yeah,
very
yeah.
warm, funny guy.
Listen to his very first episode of that podcast.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I haven't done. I've just listened to his
Things not
latest ones.
repeatable here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's a funny. I'm thanks.
But
for
he's a
sending me that.
comedian, so to be expected.
So he's a famous gringo. He's a Tom
Yeah, he's
Segura.
a huge Joe Rogan. He's part of Joe Rogan's like crew, like guys he hangs out with.
He's a big he's a big comedian, right? Pretty famous.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he is originally from Peru. I looked into this.
Okay.
Or he's from the US, but his family is Peruvian, his mother, I think. So I just listened to the latest episode, one of the latest episodes when he called up his primo in Peru.
In Peru?
Like, hey, yeah, in Peru. Like he calls up his cousin in Peru, and he's like, hey, ¿qué es la juerga? ¿Qué es la nueva juerga en Perú? ¿Cómo se habla la gente en la calle en Perú? And then they just start talking. Super funny. So yeah, Tom Segura en español. And the guy has a great Spanish accent as well. It's easy to understand.
It's really good.
Grammatically correct. So it's good to listen to as well. But
politically incorrect, but grammatically correct.
Yes, but not too offensive.
No.
Not too offensive. And then pinche Coco Joey Diaz, Jose. The funny thing, he doesn't like it when you when you call him Joey in Spanish.
What, like Jose?
Did you hear that? Yeah, he's like, oh no me llamo Joey in español, es Jose.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because I've listened to like Joe Rogan, huge inspiration to me, and so to hear those guys in like 3 hours, 4 hours, and to hear them switch to a different language, it's like you're giving the other side of their personalities.
Right, but freaking right. Joey Diaz, that guy is ratchet in Spanish.
Yeah, man, that Cuban New Jersey, man.
Yeah, like his Spanish isn't good. It's just very, very crude,
but hella entertaining.
Super funny.
All right.
Yeah, if you can understand Joey Diaz, your Spanish is pretty good.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. So that's fine. So I have a couple more. I have a couple more. There's another one called It's just called Intermediate Spanish Podcast.
Yeah.
It's also by a tío. Español is in Castellano, right? So if you're trying to learn your European Spanish, I don't remember his name. I can't really see his name here. It's just called Intermediate Spanish Podcast. But it's all in Spanish, no English. Super good, super high quality. Talks about contemporary subjects that are interesting. And I'm looking at my played episodes here, and I've listened to a lot of him as well. Super good. So intermediate Spanish. What else we got? Scrolling. Tom Segura. Español automático. That's a good one. That's the one I sent you guy with Steve Kaufman, the Steve Kaufman interview in Spanish.
Yeah.
It's with a chica, and I'm pretty no, she's Spanish for sure.
Yeah, she's also.
She's it's Castellano as well. So most of these podcasts that I've just mentioned are in Castellano. Yeah.
Another one, when I'm thinking of it, it's an NPR podcast called Radio Ambulante. Really good, like NPR, like a journalist. They have in English, actually, they have a great one called Latino USA if you just want to learn about Latinos and culture, but Radio Ambulante. They kind of do they'll do seasons, so they'll put out maybe like 10 episodes, take a break, and come back for another season. But all stories across Latin America. So I just want to think of that one, Radio Ambulante. Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I've gone through most of there's one more. It's called Charlas Hispanas.
Okay.
And it's by this Theo who lives in the States, but I think he's Peruvian as well. And it's basically a bunch of stories from Peru and Colombia. There were a couple of really interesting ones there on el narcotráfico in Colombia.
Okay. Right.
So the drug stuff there is the situation in Colombia, which is very interesting.
And that's the thing, like, right. So it's like, okay, that looks interesting content. So that's something like for me, that's something I'm going to be drawn towards. Topics. Right. Or if I'm like seeing something else, like some other topic, I'd be like, no.
And he has one episode on it's called La Gastronomía in Peru. So he's talking about like the origins of like the ceviche.
Right.
And stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the culture.
Super good. Charlas Hispanas. I gotta wait.
Mucho español.
Okay, boys, I think I've gone through all my Spanish podcasts.
Yeah. It's good,
for
man.
now.
It's good.
So that's my list. That's what I listen to on a daily basis.
That's in your shuffle.
That's on my shuffle.
One more. If we're on the subject Spanish, it's Spanglish, but it's actually a huge inspiration. I think I just started listening to this one right before I talked to you guys about starting our pod, and the Chicano shuffle, which I think we've talked about it a couple times. Just the way those guys riff with each other and the ins and outs of the Spanglish. If you just want an entertaining listen for that, the Chicano shuffle.
Chicano shuffle, boys. I love that's a guilty pleasure, eh?
Guilty pleasure indeed. Because it's like mad, like, and you have to end everything you say with "way," otherwise you're not on the Chicano shuffle.
Yes, very fun stuff. Indeed.
So, cool though. What's on your shuffle, bro? Like,
yeah. So I just want to say to listeners, like, so we've just listed a metric ton of podcasts, and if you're not like Marcus and not able to listen to podcasts literally the whole day,
right.
then don't like if you're like me, where I really only have about maybe an hour and a half of my day where I really listen to podcasts, and that's like the most time that I listen to podcasts.
Weekends, dude. Weekends.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do things on my weekends that aren't just listening to podcasts. But
what, you have a life?
Not like people. Not everybody has time to like listen to podcasts all day. So I just have a few podcasts that I rotate through.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you don't have time to listen to podcasts, like don't worry about it. Like don't feel like you need to listen to all these podcasts, right? Like if you just find one that works for you, like that's
sample
fine.
one, go from there. Yeah.
So for mine, I'll go through my podcast and my YouTube channel rotation, because I use YouTube like, for languages just as much as podcasts. So I'll start with since we already talked about it, I guess I'll start with my Spanish ones. So right now I am using Notes in Spanish Advanced. And also this is for all of the languages. I really like the Easy Languages channel on YouTube.
Yeah, man.
I find their street interviews are really nice and really helpful. And they're also very entertaining.
Yeah,
and so it's interesting that we mentioned all these podcasts from native speakers, though, because this is something that I've been looking more into getting into lately. And maybe when I finish Notes in Spanish, then I'll go through our list that Marcus just listed.
Yeah, no, I gotta listen to this after.
Yeah. So yeah, that's for Spanish. And then for French, obviously I use Hugo in her French, but I'm gonna have to start using another resource because I'm almost done with him. So I think I'm gonna move on to Français Authentique, because Johan, he's also pretty good. He's got some good material in there.
And c'est très amusant. Très amusant.
Yeah.
Super drôle.
And a YouTube channel that I really like for French is it's a history channel. It's called GeoHistoire. I think Marcus recommended that one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Deal.
Yeah.
So that entertaining.
What's an example of one of the episodes?
I think the last one I watched was like about the Napoleonic Wars.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also really like history, so I find that
Right.
pretty nice to watch.
Yeah,
And,
totally.
yeah, that's my case for French. And then for German, I actually right now I'm using the Easy German podcast because
Yeah.
actually it's a little bit different from Hugo's podcast. Like I would say they're much more advanced.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
yeah, they're
Agreed.
like
Agreed.
advanced material. They talk about some pretty cerebral stuff sometimes. Like even I'm listening to
Yeah.
them like, oh damn, like these guys are using some pretty good.
Upper left. Yeah. It's upper level because yeah, even at my level right now, some episodes I'm like, whew, like it's
Yeah,
up there.
Wait,
absolutely.
what podcast was this?
Easy German.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, so for the easy languages, I'm not gonna call it a franchise, but it's kind of like that.
Kind of. Yeah.
I think it started with Easy German because they have the most views and they're the most
the best
popular.
too.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the highest quality one too. But their podcast is also it's really good. So Kari, Manuel, and Janusz, like those guys have got it on point.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And another really, if you're an advanced learner of German, a really good YouTube channel to watch is Kurz gesagt.
Kurz gesagt, what's that one about?
It's so actually they actually have an English channel which is even bigger. Maybe you've seen it in English. It's called In a Nutshell. It's about like science videos and stuff like that.
You showed me that.
Yeah, and it's actually originally a German channel, but of course their English channel is a lot bigger because it's English, right? But they've also got like all the same material, but also in German. And if you're an advanced learner, it's really good. And I don't know, I feel like we could talk about beginner and intermediate German material, but it's just so easy to find. Like,
yeah,
I don't think we really need to point people in the because like you just go type in beginner German on YouTube or Google and you're gonna find lots of really good quality material. So German is really good to start out with, and also just with when you get to like more upper intermediate and advanced material stuff, there's also just a buttload of really good stuff you can watch.
Yeah,
that would be good for me, Cody. I'm gonna start my German in February.
Dude, start with dark.
My German intervals. Yeah, dark. Yeah, isn't that hard though? That's complicated.
Yeah, but just do it.
No, I'm gonna start with easy German, or I'll find some new podcast or something. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, and then for Chinese, since you guys can't talk about this, so for Chinese, for some more advanced learners, this is a native speaker podcast that I've been listening to. It's called Gushi FM, and it's like do you guys know what This American Life podcast?
Yep.
Is?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Chinese equivalent of that.
Okay, so it's very serious.
Yeah, it's got like 20 to 30. Well, most of them are pretty serious, but there's also some that are like kind of funny. But they have all these people come on and just like tell their stories from whatever kind of life they're living, and it's pretty interesting. And
some of those episodes can be really good.
Yeah, and especially like listening to it from people's lives in China, like you just get to hear what average everyday people's lives in China are like, and some of the crazy stories that they have, and it's really interesting. And also there is on YouTube, there's one that's really good for all levels, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Actually, it's called Mandarin Corner. It's done by some just a Chinese girl who lives in China, and she puts out a lot of really like diverse material. Like she's got everything from interviews to like vocabulary with example sentences, videos, and things like that. And she's also like got videos where she's just like walking around the streets of whatever city and just like doing things. And she's got material catered for every level, and it's really nice. So I highly recommend that one. It's called Mandarin Corner. And then for Korean, obviously Ian and I have been using Talk to Me in Korean the most.
Every day.
And I think so. Talk to Me in Korean, I like them, but my biggest issue is what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, where like I find Talk to Me in Korean doesn't have that much material where they only speak in Korean.
Yeah.
And they actually do. So I shouldn't say that they don't have anything, because they have one that's called Iyagi. It's a podcast for intermediate learners. And then they've got another one. It's called Talk to Me in 100% Korean.
Oh,
And
okay.
so they do have them, but I find they're like still like really advanced.
Okay, right.
And even with the intermediate level, I can't tell if I'm either not good enough or if it's like higher than intermediate. If it's more upper intermediate than lower intermediate.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been my issue with Talk to Me in Korean, is that like they don't have enough stuff where I can just like absorb and really just listen to everything. If you
Right.
need explanations for anything into Korean, Talk to Me in Korean is great, 100%.
Oh yeah.
But if you want any kind of that like really just like absorbing conversations and everything, it's like you might need something else. And I've stumbled upon something which doesn't have much views, and it's got kind of a weird name, so maybe it throws people off. It's called Learn Teach Korean.
Oh yeah, it is a weird name.
Yeah, but it's all, and when you get to the YouTube channel, everything's in Korean, so that probably throws a lot of people off and just scares them away. But I like just kind of like started looking through everything, and I stumbled upon this. They have like these K-drama based lessons, and it's all in Korean, and they have English subtitles. So if you really don't catch something, you can like look at the English subtitles. And they take you through like these dramas, and like they go through certain grammar points and vocab and everything. And it's so they're very entertaining to watch.
Right.
And yeah, so I would recommend that YouTube channel, Learn Teach Korean.
Boom. Yeah, man. Okay, that's and how does that one work for, like, are they speaking all in Korean, or like?
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, that's why I've gotten into that one.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
they've got this lady who just like is the presenter, and she speaks only in Korean.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's that, like, that gap, right? We talked about like from beginner material to the intermediate.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
getting materials like that to bridge you along.
And they're like really high quality videos too. So I think maybe they could just do a better job in like getting themselves out there.
Right.
So Cody, has Korean been your number one target language for the entire year?
Since May.
Okay, so you've gone hard ever since the start of the Korean War. You've gone hard.
Oh yeah, it's been hard.
That's like that's your main target language, no? Still,
yeah.
Hoy en día.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I realized something. So I kind of was frustrated with my progress in Korean, because I was thinking like, oh my God, like I've been learning Korean for 6 months now, and like I'm okay, but like it could be better, right? And I was just thinking about how much time I've been putting into it, and I actually really haven't been putting that much, because my life has been pretty busy lately, and I realized I tried to do the calculations. I'm probably around 300 hours with the language, and if you look at any Asian-based language for an English speaker, you need to be around like, what is it, like 700 or 800 hours to like really get to that big click moment.
I've never thought in terms of hours in order to attain
It's
anything.
it's an interesting way of quantifying it, though, in that way.
I can't. Yeah, I don't know. Is it?
Yeah. I mean, because like, what are you actually doing with those hours? I think.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like the FSI, Foreign Service Institute, they have like kind of charts of being. Obviously, it's all ballpark, but yeah, you like that many hours you put in. Like, yeah, I've like, for me personally, I've not put in 300 hours of Korean, but I think time isn't, because Marcus, you put in a ton of time with like your Spanish, right? So just instead of just thinking about like the content you're doing, just thinking of the durations of time. I think that it's it's obviously what you're doing with those hours, but I think it's could be one indicator of what your level's at.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, because you can be more or less effective with your time. Like sometimes I'm very passive, very, very passive in my language learning.
I know. And
sometimes I'm very focused.
Yeah.
And I promise you, when I'm very focused, I'm probably more than 10 times effective at retaining material.
Oh, I'm the same. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's what you're doing with those.
It's an interesting metric, but I don't buy it 100%.
It's a metric.
I don't buy it 100%. I want to see some peer-reviewed studies of this before I jump on board.
Right.
So, but hey, Cody, that's interesting, dude. So, hey, what about you, Ian, in terms of podcasts? What do you got to, what do you got to add?
I'm gonna steer it a little away from just language specifics and talk about ones that just inspired me about languages. They're just podcasts. They just talk about languages, like kind of like our podcast, where they get different guests. They dive in depending on who the guest is. So first one, and then I can add a few like language specific ones after, but a podcast really inspiring for me. And I got to meet him last summer at Langfest, is Chris Burlholm's Actual Fluency podcast, where he's been doing it since 2013. And he's at like 100 and I gotta look up here, but like 150 episodes, 160 episodes.
Where's he from?
So he's from Denmark. He's a Dane originally.
That's and
he's bounced around a bit. So he's lived in Budapest. So it's kind of interesting. Like if you stay, you build like these relationships with podcasts. So his since 2014. So he's lived in Budapest. He's lived in England. I think he recently just moved to Portugal, so he's bouncing around, and wide variety of guests. So it's sort of like just a language generalist program. It's in English, but I love Lindy Botes sent out a tweet or something like, "What's something you struggle with the most?" And for me, it's honestly like I like just learning about languages and talking about languages as much as I do like learning the actual language. Like I can sit and listen to Chris Burlholm talk about languages all day. Like and I don't even know if that's something I just struggle with. It's just something I enjoy. Right. So his podcast like just gives me new ideas. He's had a wide variety of guests. Another one similar to his is called the Language Mastery Podcast. He's had guys like Richard Simcott on. So it's just interesting to hear like a guy like Richard Simcott's backstory of how the man of 50 languages, like how he does it. And that's an interesting one. Benny Lewis from the Fluent in 3 Months blog, he just started a new one recently. I think he just named it Fluent in 3 Months. But if you just Google Benny Lewis, there's another one kind of on the more linguistic side. It's called Lexicon Valley. That one's from Slate, where he's a linguist by profession. He just dives into all types of topics. He did one all about like Creoles recently. Another one, it's defunct now. It's not around anymore, but it was really good. And sometimes I don't know what these podcasts, they like move their RSS feeds, but it's called The World in Words. And they did like when ISIS was big in the news a few years ago, like they broke down the whole meaning of Daesh in Arabic. And like I find, like I don't speak any Arabic, but I find something like that interesting. And yeah, those would be like the generalist language podcasts that I'm into. And my daily rotation right now, it's kind of like taking your vitamins, like your supplements. So yeah, the Easy German, Talk to Me in Korean. There's this good one. I like when they mix in culture as well. So there's a podcast called, I just like the model of it. It's Let's Learn Croatian. And it's about like a 10-minute, 12-minute lesson. And then they get one guy, this DJ Mo, they call him. He just drops into the pod and gives like information about Croatia. So it's like supplementing it with like cultural facts. One day they talk about musicians, talk about what the economy in Croatia is like. So I think that's just an interesting model. So I think if people are thinking of how to present a podcast for a particular language. Their model's cool. And yeah, man, other than that, there's a bunch of non-related language podcasts I still listen to, like to give me ideas of how it can just be engaging to the audience. But that's my rotation. But language podcasts about languages, that's definitely I'm big into that. So that's kind of my spiel, my shtick.
I love it, man.
Yeah. Recommend.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, like, I love the super nerdy YouTube channel, Lang Focus.
Yeah,
Talked about before.
Yeah.
that dude, whatever his name is. What's his name again?
I don't know his name.
No, but Paul.
Is it Paul?
Yeah, you don't remember that? It's like in the beginning of each episode, he's like, "This is Lang Focused, and my name is Paul."
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that's right.
He's like the perfect guy for that too.
He's so funny. Like I watched the latest, or one of the origins of the Japanese language.
Right. Yeah.
The guy's so, like, he's on top of like all the linguistic academic literature. He's like, like in this episode, in the beginning of this episode, he's like, okay, so the origin of the Japanese language is highly contested among scholars.
So he's
yes, exactly.
Right up on the debate.
Exactly. Like some researchers think that it originates from Mongolian language, but others think it comes more from like the Indo-European Russian.
And he's got sources to back up all that.
Yes, exactly. This guy's super funny. I appreciate people that bring in academics into things.
Yeah, boys.
Always. Yeah. So cool. So except for language, this is kind of shifting gears. Except for language podcasts, what else do you guys like to listen to? What else is on your, like you mentioned, it's like taking your vitamins. I 100% agree. Like when I wake up in the morning, I have like a list of podcasts that I go through to start my day.
Non-language podcasts?
Yeah, non-language.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I got to give a shout out to a work colleague of mine who we're doing a collab on translation here. We're going to do like a simulcast. And his podcast called Structured Rambling. So if people want to hear that, it's Mr. Paul Sonsby, my work colleague. And if you're into literature, or not just literature, film, Paul has a wide variety of different topics topics that he's into, or books, I should say, as well. So he does a deep dive into, like, he did one on the Fellowship of the Ring recently. He's done religion depicted in literature. His first episode was a Margaret Atwood novel. So that it's fun when like you have friends that do them too, because you're like, yo, it's the small pod too. So I'm definitely gonna check it out. And then Joe Rogan, for sure. That's probably the biggest one. That's not language related to, but wide variety of guests. So the thing I used to watch Joe Rogan a lot more. I don't watch Joe Rogan or listen to Joe Rogan as much anymore. I strictly only listen now when he brings on like an interesting scientist, or something like that. His guests determined too. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Because there's a lot of people there that I don't really feel are worth my time.
Yeah,
completely frank.
No, man, that's totally
with Joe Rogan. Plus, I feel like he's too big and mainstream now, often as well. Like he so a lot of his, a little bit. Like especially like when he gets into like political stuff and whatever, I kind of just tune out to that. No, fair enough. I just feel like it's gone old. But in terms of like good other podcasts, for sure, Sam Harris's podcast is probably my all-time favorite. Making sense. That guy is a legend. In terms of podcasting, I don't know, Cody, have you listened at all to Sam Harris?
It sounds like something I would be interested in.
Well, for sure. If you're a deep thinking person, you would love Sam Harris, which I know you are.
Yeah. He does. Yeah, he's a lot on meditation and the mind, and to be frank, that's the stuff I don't listen to. Sam.
Well, I don't listen to that. So he's an ultra pragmatist.
It's interesting.
He's an ultra pragmatist, right? So he's very good at objectively analyzing things, and that obviously that's something that I value a lot.
But I think something like Sam Harris, that's a really good bridge between. Actually, this is a good segue into one of the podcasts that I listen to. So this is like a good bridge between like the whole like kind of new age spirituality kind of thing that's like really esoteric, that scares a lot of secular minded people like us. And I feel like Sam Harris is somebody who like bridges that gap really well. Yeah. And another guy who does that is the guy who runs a podcast called Secular Buddhism. His name is Noah Reshetic. His name, he actually is from Mexico. But he's lived in America for quite a long time. I think he speaks like perfect English. But yeah, his podcast, Secular Buddhism, it's all about that, like presenting the more kind of like mysterious and esoteric ideas of Buddhism and translating into the more like secular Western mind, which is what all three of us have a lot, because I was originally raised like kind of Christian, and that just faded away after a while. And then I went into a phase where I was super hardcore atheist. And then that kind of just, I wasn't so hardcore about that. And I kind of just relaxed about everything, but I still would consider myself very like agnostic, atheist, whatever. And I was put off by spirituality for a long time, and until I got into this podcast, and I just found he explained everything in a way that just really made sense. It was very objective and it was very clear. Everything made a lot of sense. And so if you're interested in getting into spirituality or Buddhism, I would highly recommend that. And meditation as well, because meditation is an inseparable component of Buddhism. And yeah, so I think that one's pretty good if you guys want to delve into that kind of stream of thinking.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. That hasn't been it's not probably the most thing it's not the thing that I'm most interested about probably, but yeah, it's definitely for some people that's very interesting. Mm-hmm. For sure. So yeah, keep going.
Oh, there's just one other pod. So that's the one non-language related podcast that I really listen to. And there's also another one. And it's called, oh my God, what's it called? It's a martial arts podcast, but it's not really about like technicalities of martial arts. It's more like martial arts philosophy and how it relates to your life and how you can draw a lot of lessons that you learn in martial arts to how to live your life in a more dedicated and disciplined way, I guess you could say. And it's called Fight for a Happy Life, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's.
Do you have any examples?
Yeah, like for example, like there's this one where he really talks about the idea of death and how we shouldn't be afraid of death. And martial arts helps you deal with the idea of being killed, and just how in life you can. It's just really important to think about the idea of death and dying once in a while, because I feel like lots of people just when they think about dying, they just think, oh, that's scary, and they just like instantly run away from that. But if you really just kind of steep yourself in it for a little bit, like, oh, like what would it really be like if I died, and what would really happen? Like, would the world really be affected? Like, how would my family and friends feel? Like, if I died, like what happens after I die? And I just feel like the more you think about something like as serious as death, the better you can handle it, if that makes any sense.
That's some true shit, dude. You're dropping some deep stuff.
So it's a lot of kind of topics like that, which really interests me, because and maybe I'll get into that another time, but a lot of really big big question topics like that interest me a lot. So, and also martial arts is just I like that I like the spiritual lens through very secular minded and kind of martial style topics like that. So
No, I hear you, man. That stuff's super interesting.
mm-hmm.
Marcus, you doing any sports podcasts recently?
Well, so there's this one sports podcast. It's pretty big in Canada. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Spit and Chicklets.
Yeah,
Kind of a big deal.
Absolutely.
That's honestly, that's really only one I listen to.
Yeah, no, that's
I listen to Chicklets, but I follow it religiously, like especially during the season.
Yeah, during
Like,
the season, for sure.
Sometimes I don't necessarily listen to like the entire episodes, but I
No,
listen
no.
to basically the first parts
Yeah.
of, like in the beginning, Spin Chicklets hockey episode, one of the biggest episodes in Canada. It's on the top 5 list for sure all the time. But like in the beginning, they're always talking about like the latest for the first 15 to 30 minutes, and then they usually have a guest on.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the pod is just basically Wit talking about golf. So I always turn it off after that. But usually I always listen to the first 20 minutes usually to get like the latest check in. And then if it's a good guest, I listen to the guest. And then I never listen to the golf talk. This stuff's so boring.
Yeah.
So
long form podcast. Sometimes there's gold, and then other times it's like, all right.
Exactly. So no, I love playing golf. I hate watching and listening to it.
I know.
There's a difference, big difference.
There's a difference. So that's really the only sports podcast I listen to. There's another good Spanish one. I don't remember what it's called right now, and I don't have it up on my phone. But they go over the latest results in La Liga, and they always talk about Nadal.
Okay.
Tennis is super big here. And
right, man. Right.
What about you, dude?
Spittin' Chicklets, other hockey related ones that inspired me as well. 31 Thoughts. That's Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick from Sportsnet. Theirs is really good.
Yeah, they have YouTube videos too, right?
Yeah, they probably do. Lots of Sportsnet's the big media company. To tie it back to Spanish, there's a great one for baseball called Las Grandes Ligas, where it's just 2 Spanish dudes. They might even, I think it's part of the MLB's network. They work for the MLB, but they give like kind of like not like the politically incorrectness of Spittin' Chicklets. So they just give like the rundown of the week in Spanish. It's like a half hour long. So catch up with some baseball with that. And then not so much I haven't listened to many fantasy football ones lately, but sports for a while took up a huge chunk of my podcast listening. But Grandes Ligas, if you're into baseball.
That's understandable for sure. That's understandable. Yeah. So apart from that, I mostly only listen to I have like a couple news podcasts that I listen to. There's this really good one from NPR called Planet Money.
Oh, okay. Heard of that
economics. To go through, good macroeconomic subjects. Very interesting. Everyone should have some understanding for how our economic system works. So that's a really good one for that. And should be listened to. Super high quality as well. Otherwise, I tend to listen to every episode of The Daily for the New York Times. That's like the biggest episode in the world, I think. After Joe Rogan.
For news,
but it's always on all the top list. It's top 5 in every single Anglo-Saxon country.
Right.
Sure. And super high quality, very insightful. And I think that's a mandatory one as well. So Planet Money, The Daily, always listen to those. Chicklets. What else? I tend to every once in a while. This is like I wake up in the morning. Remember, I was talking about lying in bed and listening to podcasts.
Yeah, man. Yep.
The first podcast I usually throw on is Global News Podcast by BBC. It's like a 15-minute spiel of the latest in the world, what's happening. And I follow that up with Noticias en Telemundo. That's very focused on North American issues, right? So that's my first 30 minutes lying in bed, just listening to to English world news and Spanish world news.
Word, dude.
And then from that on, I usually throw on a couple Spanish podcasts and start my day.
Lots of pods, man.
Yeah, that's my life.
So how we feeling about our pod, boys? 18 eps.
18
variety. It's fun.
Finally legal.
Yeah,
like you said.
Finally legal. I just started a Twitter thread here. I'm working on putting all our intro songs. So there's like a tweet with the link to the YouTube video of all our songs. So I think if the listeners interested to hear the whole song, because you sent us that playlist, I was like, oh, I want to like share this with the world.
That's smart, right? So I created the playlist, but then I realized that our latest intro song for the Nick episode, the song doesn't exist on Spotify. So I got a little bummed out. Get a little bummed out for that, but not a big deal.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, guys, I think that like I feel like this was I think we touched on some interesting stuff here in this episode.
Wide swath.
So, definitely something close to my heart. Podcast.
Right. Definitely one more shout out. Yeah, I'm just because thinking of pods now, there's more coming to mind. There's one called Americans in Germany Drinking Whiskey. That's probably the newest one.
Yeah, dude. I'm pretty sure they liked some of our videos on Instagram.
Yeah, and they just did one about learning German. Like, because out of their 50 episodes, I think they have a couple on language. And shout out. It'll be my last little shout out here to a new pod I recommend, because I am planning to go to Germany hopefully in 2 years. So listening to those guys and then how they try out a new whiskey every episode is pretty awesome too.
That's pretty sick, dude. That's pretty sick. Yeah, I'll check those guys out.
Fun guys.
Cool. What do you guys got going on for the rest of the day?
I've got to leave Banff. Can't stay here.
Malheureusement.
I'm teaching online. So I got some video ideas that I'm working on with screencast, and this comprehensible input. I am fully on the train. So when I get home, I'm going to be working on some of those videos for my classes. And then I also want to send you guys a Ukrainian one here this week. See how much you understand. See if I'm on the right track with this.
For sure, man.
So
with pleasure.
That's my Sunday.
Avec plaisir.
Et vous?
Pinch?
Yeah, I'm gonna be working out because I work out every day.
I gotta do that too. I've been lazy.
Yeah, and then working out. I'm gonna go for a walk. Usually, I'm gonna make lunch too, and then usually I go for a walk in the afternoon. When the weather's nice in the summer, I go to the river and fish sometimes, but since I don't know, it's too cold to just sit there now, so I like to go for walks in the afternoon. On Sundays sometimes. I actually don't listen to podcasts when I do that. I take that time to really just like,
oh yeah, you've said that before,
kind of think about things and take the time for myself. And then later tonight I'll probably just smash away at Korean, do some studying.
Attaboy.
Watch some YouTube videos and stuff like that. Yeah, last night I was watching the show Crash Landing on You. It's like the most popular K-drama right now, I think. For good reason. It's really good. It's really high quality. It's very entertaining to watch. It's normally not my style of show because it's very like romantic and like stuff like that, but it's still like it's really entertaining. So I've just been enjoying that.
Attaboy.
Yeah, what about Marquito?
Dude, I gotta pack up. I'm leaving this place on Tuesday, so I gotta start packing up.
Man, nice.
Packing up. Yeah, time coming to an end here in Barcelona.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your time there.
I will. Thank you, sir. But yeah, we'll be back next Sunday for another episode of the pod. I hope.
Absolutely.
If we don't die.
Right.
COVID?
Yeah, that's important. Don't die. But Cody gave us his spiel on death, so we're good.
Yeah, that's true. We're good. We're good on that. Even if we die, we're fine.
All right. So everybody stay safe. Everybody stay healthy. And let's keep on rolling with a good podcast.
with a good podcast. Ciao,
Oh,
ciao.
yeah.
Ciao, ciao.